Hey, Jason. Hey, Randy. Look, there's a couple of things we're going to talk about today. One, we're going to put in the personal brand bucket, and inside of that, we're going to talk about elevator pitches and what they are and how to be ready. And then we're going to talk about some new stuff that's just come out from the White House and the VA that relates to spouse hiring, veteran spouses. So let's start with personal brand. And I'm going to pitch this to you, both you, Randy and Jason. When we say personal brand, what comes to mind for you guys? Randy, you go first.
I think it's experiences we've had in the military. So personal brand can be a lot of things to a lot of different people, but for me, I am a sum of my life experiences. So initially, I was a pilot in the Navy, and then I transitioned over into the Air National Guard. So when I think about my personal brand, it's not so much, who I am or what I am. It's a sum of my life experiences. And I think that really connects with employers because we're not just who we are at present moment. We're everything that we were up to this point now. So experiences we had flying, in my case, are germane. Experiences I've had after I transitioned to the Air National Guard and became a weekend warrior, so to speak, are germane. So personal brand to me means sum of life experiences, particularly all those trainings, all those deployments, all those good times, bad times, and everything in between that we had in the military. So that's my take. I'll kick it over to Jason and get what you have to say.
Yeah. So personal brand, right? The first initial thing that comes to my mind is that you can make it what you want it to be. In other words, you could have a life history of X, but you need to transition over to here. How can you bridge that gap and change your personal brand? It's ever changing right now. Obviously, the longer you are in a current type of a situation with, as Randy was talking about, all the different experiences that you can pull out, the stronger your brand becomes. I'm a big fan of whatever my brand is, because it's changed over the course of time. Whatever my brand is, I like to bring additional value to me, right? So to whoever I'm talking with. So if I'm talking to a recruiter, I might look for ways to incorporate that I have a network of people that I communicate with, a sphere of influence, if you will, and I can utilize that to help fill other gaps within their organization that I want to be a part of, right? Of our organization, even if I'm interviewing, right? Because I'm bringing another layer of value. I'm very value, minded with my brand. My brand is find the holes. I have all the plugs, right? I could plug all the holes with my brand. And that's kind of how I think about it from just a picture perspective, if you will, that I like to try to paint. My brand is a problem solver and a gap filler, if you will. And that's what I try to portray in my conversations with whoever it is. In this case, we'll talk about employers.
So
So
here's
how
a
about
couple of
you,
things.
Chris?
Yeah, here's a couple of things I'm hearing. I'm hearing it's an aggregation of all your life experiences, and specifically for us in the military, we're immediately branded. We're branded with rank. We're branded with ribbons. We're branded with uniforms, and sometimes that makes things easier. But what it really does is it only shows you the surface. It doesn't show you all the things behind that make you you. And I also like what you said, Jason. Um, Personal brand is something that you manage. It's a product. It evolves. It's both aspirational in terms of what you want to become, just as much as it is who you are. Now, in the end, your brand is defined by the people who are around you and what they say about you. And if you don't manage it, you can't control it. Now, control is not necessarily manipulation. But either one of those isn't bad as long as people are walking away and they know truthfully and authentically who you are, what you stand for, what makes you different, what value you bring. And we've spoken about this many, many times in previous sessions where your goal, whether it be the interview, whether it be the resume, whether it be the LinkedIn profile, is to make sure that people can clearly see the value and differentiation between you and the 20,000 other people who have applied to this job. Now, I'm going to pitch it back to Randy and Jason, where we could talk about examples in our own experience of how we've made sure that people were clear on who we were in the brand. So taking all of these data points and synthesizing it into something that we would call an elevator pitch, which is something you're given explanations in the elevator if you had 2 minutes with the CEO, or anywhere else as a means of letting people know who you are and what value you bring. Randy, Jason, anybody want to go jump on that first?
I'll take it. I think the first thing, if we're talking about elevator pitches here, that you need to do when crafting such a thing is get some mentorship. This is not one of those things that you need to do alone. There's content on this channel that can help you. There's people in your network from the military that can help you, previous supervisors, previous colleagues. Maybe you've had some education along the way. So think of some of those teachers and instructors that you've had that really made an impact in your life. If you've already had civilian employment, think of colleagues and supervisors from that realm that have really made a big impact. So before you get into an elevator pitch and your ability to speak about yourself, get some mentorship, get some guidance. So that's step number one, in my opinion. Step number two is understanding the input and the output. So you have this input, which is your elevator speech, so to speak. The output isn't always going to be what you want. You're not necessarily going to get the feedback you want, but you're going to boost your confidence every time. So tip number two from my perspective is you're going to boost your confidence once you refine this process. So don't expect perfection right off the bat, but expect and know that you're going to have a boost in your confidence every single time you go down this path. So that's my take. Jason, I'll kick it over to you.
So my mindset is always impression, right? You want to leave an impression. They're not going to remember everything you say, but they're going to remember how they felt when you said it. So that's why it goes back to what Randy was saying, right? The comfortability, I guess that's a word. I don't know how comfortable and secure you are with saying it, right? So the more times that you repeat it, the more times you practice it, the more time, say it in your head, walking down the street, whatever, the more it's going to just roll off the tongue, right? Use words that you use, right? Don't try to find some fancy word that you can't even say, right? Because you're going to fumble on it. So be
like comfortability,
like that one. So that's something I don't use. So I wouldn't throw that in there because that's not really a normal word for me, right? So you want to be smart with what you're saying. You don't want a bunch of 3-letter words, but you get the point. You want it to be short. You want it to be concise. You want it to have impact. You want to be able to say who you are, what you do, what you want to achieve. Somewhere in there, have that ask, right? Or state that what you're trying to get to, right? This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is where I'm going. This is my plan, right? But very short and concise. One of the things that you mentioned, Chris, and I wanted to dive into this real quick, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on it, is you mentioned your brand also includes who you are around. I'm a fan of that. You are who you are around. You're guilty by association, good or bad, right? So it's an important piece of the pie. And my quick personal kind of story on that to build success was when I was in the mortgage industry. I was a sales manager running a team and all that. And as I was growing in that industry, I had to work with a lot of different realtors and title companies and all of that. The realtors out there, some of them were very high producing, high volume, professional realtors that they were the golden, opportunity that you wanted to work with as a lender. What I did was started creating relationships with these realtors, not really asking them for business, but hanging out with them a little bit, right? Let's go have lunch. Let's do this. I became guilty by association. Other realtors thought they were giving me business, so therefore they started to give me business because they wanted to be like them. So that association was really important, right? People's perceptions are very important. So I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that. If you can interweave some of that into your response too, Chris, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on elevator pitch too, of course.
Yeah, it's one thing to have your brand statement or your elevator pitch. It's one thing to say you can or you did, and it's another thing to make sure that that aligns with what people see and what their feedback is. And so that's why the management, you're running the business of you when you transition, when you're in private industry. Now, you may not need this if you go, kind of into a government role and things are time-based or relatively consistent with how military does things. But even in the military, it's important, especially if you have career aspirations of moving to the next level or going into management or whatnot. Managing what people say about you is an important career skill. And again, there's a difference between manipulation and control. Control is not bad. So your words, both spoken and written, email, text, Slack, everything, actions and decisions that you make, your body language, every interaction is going to either detract or contribute to that brand alignment that you so seek. And I think regardless of whether your brand is something that you want consistency, right? So every actor, every social media person, everybody, if the really good ones, people understand who they are and they have that brand. And so it's like going to McDonald's. They know what they like at McDonald's. They know what they don't like, but they know wherever you go in the world, that hamburger is going to taste the same. There's predictability. And so when you get into managing your brand, you have to make sure that you're getting feedback and that you're sensing and you're using intuition and you're actively asking people, hey, how was that interaction? You're actively explaining to people, hey, I aspire to be this. I wanted to behave this way. Give me your feedback. And that's what Randy's comments about mentoring. And we could all mentorship is not a higher level to lower level thing. That's the traditional. But mentorship is peer-to-peer, the buddy system. Mentorship is asking your kids for feedback on how you're showing up. And that's scary enough. And it never comes out the way that you intended, but it's feedback and it's data. And it's important because if they see you that way, others will too.